Mao is a cipher for many of you I know, and one of my most loyal and smart followers commented on a recent video that he really struggled to understand Mao's programs, especially those after the revolution. And we are greeting him here in 1957 at a reception where he is taking that drink. And I don't know it, but I'd like to imagine this is the very one where he was meeting with Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, whom he would try to bully into a series of embarrassing contests. First, to drink alcohol, and realizing he was losing, Mao deputing then Zhou Enlai to drink in his stead because the premier was always better at holding his liquor. But then, failing even at that, trying to switch the entire contest from shots of vodka to see who could eat more raw, spicy Hunan peppers, the kind of rigged game Mao was sure he could not lose. And it was right around that very time that the great leap forward was in motion. Maybe of all of Chairman Mao's programs, the one that people have the hardest time getting their heads around. Now, this video is not going to explain it, still less to defend it, but merely offer an alternative perspective, maybe for you to consider it. In brief, this was a massive nationwide campaign that mobilized all people to do more and do better with less, that farmers would create more produce, crops, and animals than they ever had, and that regular workers, even you or I, would make more steel and leap past England and America, creating it even in homemade furnaces in our own backyards. It's an easy campaign to make fun of, because does it really make sense for your grandma to be melting down her wok and creating steel in her courtyard? Or what's up with the nationwide obsession with murdering every sparrow? The darker turn it took, of course, is more serious, and that it led to the greatest modern man-made famine, where tens of millions of people died even though there was enough food in the country for everyone to survive, and indeed Beijing was exporting grain to its shaky Eastern European allies in those years. How could anyone imagine that this campaign would make sense, and why would they go forward with it? I'd like you to hold all of that in mind and think about it in tandem with two other phenomena that might be more familiar to you: the Mormon mission and the Habitat for Humanity trip. Pious young Mormons, you may know, spend their 18 months to 2 years on really a required mission spreading the word. And when you meet them on the streets of London or New York or wherever, you might wonder, what's the point? Who are they really converting? And I thought about this a lot some years ago during Mitt Romney's campaign for president of the United States, where people made fun of him a good deal because his Mormon mission had been to, of all places, Paris, France. The criticism was that while other people were sweating in jungles or struggling on the frozen steppe, this guy from a privileged family got to put in his 2 years in a supposedly cushy assignment not far from the Pont Neuf. But I thought about it a different way. Is there a harder assignment, a more compelling Sodom for the pure-hearted young missionary than the City of Lights, where, on a good day, maybe you will get some polite condescension, if not outright derision and rudeness and a mocking of your faith? And that's the key to understanding it, really, because if you talk candidly with knowledgeable Mormons post-mission, many will admit they really didn't make converts. So why is all of this elaborate apparatus flinging the young people of this church around the globe? And I think, looked at from a different perspective, the purpose of the Mormon mission is completely different. It is not to convert other people. It is to convert oneself, to reconfirm one's belief and knowledge of the scripture far from home in a hostile environment, away from friends and family, where you have to dig deep and live the scripture for yourself by yourself. Habitat for Humanity is just the same, but maybe in a secular kind of version. Now, for those who don't know, Habitat is a charity that builds housing for those who need it, and it is a regular feature you will see on the CVs of young people from prosperous, often liberal American suburbs. Some high school sophomore, for example, will go off to Guatemala and build housing. Now, many people would sit back and think this is completely bonkers, because just for the price of the air ticket, surely you could hire a bunch of Guatemalan dudes who are way better at roofing, electric, drywall, or whatever than some hapless, good-meaning, fluffy-haired lax bro from Western Mass. But again, that's not the point. It's not about the efficiency of turning particular resources into outcomes. There is a recognition that these young people are privileged, and so they are getting a direct experience, an experience where they themselves hopefully will be converted to the understanding of what a housing crisis might be like, as they live in the community they serve and actually work with their own hands to make the change and learn that that's possible. And so the ultimate goal is that when they go back to their lives, they themselves will be changed and will understand this problem and work toward it in their futures. This is the perspective, I think, often missing but helpful in understanding the Great Leap and its subsidiary campaigns, and you can apply this everywhere in life. Don't necessarily look at the stated outcomes, the number of people converted to Mormonism, the number of houses built. Instead, you want to consider that the point of the enterprise is actually a little bit hidden, and it's all about the effect on the doer himself or herself. And so, in the Great Leap, steel was great, sure, if you can use it, but think about what all those subsidiary campaigns might have been doing, what kind of effect they were supposed to have on the people carrying them out. Again, I'm not defending or explaining, just offering a different perspective. What would that be like for you? What would that do to you as a person in the best case scenario? I'll put it like this. In those middle decades of the 20th century, America was a country widely known and admired for its mastery of the physical world, from the very small to the very large. This was the country that had split the atom to unleash its power and actually sent a man to stand upon the moon and gaze back down upon the earth. But China, in those very same years, those decades, was engaged in something even more ambitious, requiring the mobilization of its entire society in a Herculean moonshot-level effort. Because if Americans were going to put a man on the moon, China was going to put a man on the earth, a new man, a socialist man. Armstrong's own words arriving on the moon of the small step to a giant leap that he hoped to share with all mankind were themselves a kind of echo of this great materialist and spiritual experiment from China 10 years earlier. A great leap, however it landed.